Hi, and welcome back to Authentically ADHD. I am your host, Carmen. I'm a late diagnosed ADHDer, an early childhood special educator, and a certified life and performance coach. I created this podcast to help as many ADHDers as I could to learn about your specific ADHD. I know that when I was late diagnosed, I was sent out the door with meds and no help. We have to do a lot of this work on our own, but if we join together in community, we can live more authentically and with more joy in our lives. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hi there, and welcome back to Authentically ADHD. Happy New Year. Can you believe that it's 2025? Because I definitely can't. When I was a kid, I thought that we would be living in some kind of futuristic world at this time. Although, I guess some people who have a lot of money kind of do. Anyways, the new year is usually a time when people set goals. The gym numbers go up. You know, everyone is all about improvement for a few days or a few weeks. So I thought we would look at this from a different perspective that you may have never thought of. We are going to talk about ADHD and learning styles. So the ADHD, learning styles and strategies, and that includes emotional learning. Something new that I learned about in Tamara Rozier's new book, You, Me, and Our ADHD Family, which I'm going to link in the show notes because it's amazing. I couldn't believe how much I related to it, and I use it by default. People with ADHD are naturally creative, out-of-the-box thinkers, and unique problem solvers. Learning about the way you retain information can influence how you learn and how much you can learn, improve the way that you learn, and you can thrive through active and engaging learning methods. First, let's talk about how the ADHD brain is wired differently so we can understand how it correlates with ADHD learning styles. So people usually categorize ADHD with low dopamine, and while that's partially true, it's a lot more than that. Our entire prefrontal cortex is deficient, meaning we not only misuse the dopamine in our brains, but we also have difficulty with linear thinking patterns, planning, organizing, and prioritizing, and all the executive functions that come with that. Now, not only is the prefrontal cortex deficient in executive functions, but there is no connection to our cerebral cortex, meaning we don't have that stop and think before we do or problem solve before we act. The connection between the limbic system and the cerebral cortex is very, very poor. And this leads to a lack of ability to manage and regulate our emotions. We have an interest-based nervous system versus an importance-based nervous system, meaning we are likely to complete tasks that interest us over tasks that have a due date or are important in another way. Lack of prioritization just makes it worse. So we have more deficits than just dopamine. Our brains are not as active in some areas and overactive in others. So we learn differently. One of the ways that we learn differently that I was unfamiliar with until recently is called emotional learning. It's when a strong emotion like joy, connection, being proud, or even disgust, guilt, and sadness are involved in the learning process. For example, I remember learning about the Holocaust in school because it was so sad to me. It really was a topic that impacted how I looked at humanity. I remember visiting a museum on the history of the Holocaust and crying there. Then there are positive feelings that boost motivation and memory. For example, celebrating with your neurodiverse friend about learning wins or working hard on a project that interested you and you getting a good grade. The emotional learning is why we can sometimes remember someone's face and not their name. You may even be able to recall an entire memory with that person and not remember their name. Seek support from a community of like-minded learners or accountability partners to help you stay motivated. Hey there. If you're looking for a game changer in managing your ADHD, let me tell you about something that's made a huge impact on my life. Focused, the adult ADHD group coaching program by Kristen Carter. This isn't just another program. It's a community. It's a roadmap. It's a lifeline for adults with ADHD who want to thrive. Inside of Focus, you'll find weekly coaching calls with Kristen packed with actionable insights, a supportive community of adults who get it. They get what it's like to live with ADHD. You'll get tools and strategies that actually work for our brains. No fluff, just real results. I've been a part of Focus for over a year, and let me tell you, it's where I've learned so much of what I share with you on Authentically ADHD. It's been a game changer for me, and I think it could be for you too. And here's the best part. If you use my link to join, we both save money. It's a win-win. So if you've been looking for the right ADHD support, this is your sign to check it out. Head to the link in my show notes to learn more and sign up. Let's thrive together with tools and support that we need to succeed. Are you also loving what we're doing on Authentically ADHD but want to take your experience to the next level? Well, I have got something for you. Introducing the Authentically ADHD Patreon, your VIP pass to the ultimate ADHD support hub. As a Patreon member, you'll unlock exclusive perks like early access to every single episode, hear it before anyone else does, a treasure trove of resources that I've made, tools, guides, and worksheets to help you thrive in everyday aspects of life, direct coaching opportunities with me designed to help you harness your ADHD powers, and the cherry on top, an incredible community of like-minded individuals who just get it. You're not alone on this journey, and together we can be unstoppable. By joining Patreon, you're not just supporting the podcast, you're fueling a movement. Together, we're breaking stigmas, embracing authenticity, and creating a world where ADHD is seen as a strength and not just a struggle. So what are you waiting for? Head over to patreon.com/authenticallyADHD and join the family today. Let's keep growing, thriving, and showing up authentically together. Hope to see you over there. Back to the show. Okay, so now that we've gone over why ADHDers learn differently and how our brains are wired, let's go through some common learning styles and strategies that tend to support the ADHD brain when retaining information that we intentionally want to learn. This is not a limited list, and I'd love to hear the ways that you learn. I'm going to go over 6 ways that assist learning when you have ADHD. We will talk about each strategy and why they work and give you a few examples for each one. The first one is visual learning. Have you ever bought an audiobook and used it while you were reading the hard copy? This is an example of visual learning. I do this when I really want to retain what I'm reading. ADHD brains struggle to process and retain auditory-only information, such as directions or in lectures. Now, if you could take notes in that lecture, that would help. If you could take a printed version of those directions with you, that would help. Some ways that you can make things visual are color coding different types of information, using mind maps to visually plan, organize, or prioritize using your main idea, and breaking it up with the attached branches. Use the visual timers and schedules. We are time blind, so we need things that remind us to check how long we've been working, check in with our bodies, and or decide if we want to stay in that state of hyperfocus or get yourself out of it. I use mind maps to help me plan my preschool units. They are long-term, heavy, detailed projects, so it helps me organize my ideas, activities, family engagements, assessments, etc. The next strategy I want to talk about is incorporating movement and sensory input. ADHD brains thrive on stimulation and physical movement. It increases dopamine and norepinephrine, the two neurotransmitters that are crucial for focus and motivation. And they're already weak in our ADHD brains, so incorporating movement allows for better cognitive function and engagement. By the way, I'm not just talking about working out or going for a walk, which does help immensely, but using a fidget toy while learning, using an active learning, engaging way to learn, reference our active processing episode, and incorporate a minute of jumping jacks or squats to up that dopamine and motivation. Getting sensory input can look like lighting a candle, changing your environment, brushing your teeth, splashing your face with water, and or put on background music and or a podcast. Change your sensory input in any way that helps you. Note down what sensory inputs help you and which you need to avoid. The next strategy is using hands-on activities, aka experiential learning. This is actually a huge impact of the way that I teach my preschool classroom, helping and setting up the environment so that my students learn through experience. Young brains and ADHD brains excel when they can do instead of just listen or watch. This is why the I do, you do, we do method used in schools a lot didn't work for me, and it doesn't work for a lot of ADHD learners because it requires attention in the I do, we do, which requires passive listening with the expectation that the information will be retained, which is needed in the we do and you do portions. On the other hand, active participants in a task engage multiple senses, and it keeps our focus sharp. Hands-on activities also encourage problem-solving, creativity, and they can turn abstract concepts into tangible experiences to better understand and manipulate. Some examples of hands-on learning include pretend and role play, where you act out social, historical, or story events to make the learning interactive and memorable. Then there is STEM learning, which is a hands-on strategy that includes building models, conducting simple experiments, or using visual aids to understand math concepts like cube blocks. Then there is project-based learning, which is creating from what you learn, like a presentation, speech, poster, and even me creating this podcast is a form of hands-on learning. For example, when teaching fractions, use a pizza or a pie, physically dividing it to show a clear, concrete understanding of the concept. The fourth strategy is around interest-based learning, and this is a key factor for ADHDers because we have an interest-based nervous system, so we are more likely to hyper-focus on topics that we are passionate about. Tying new information to a hobby or favorite topic makes it engaging, and it helps us to retain the information. Interest-based learning can also make challenging topics more relatable and interesting. Integrate hobbies into hard tasks, like creating games. Like if your kid likes video games, you create game-type math problems, Use themed assignments and choose the theme of interests, like animals, space, sports, etc. Also, giving choice. Having choice helps with our interest-based learning style with challenging or uninteresting information, tasks, or projects. Because we have choice, there's a little bit more interest involved there. The fifth strategy is to chunk information into smaller parts. This works because ADHD learners often feel overwhelmed by large, long-term, and or dense tasks and projects. When we break up the information, steps, or ideas into smaller chunks, it reduces the cognitive overload and increases our focus and motivation as we get through each chunk. The smaller, more manageable steps that you create make more little wins within the final project, boosting dopamine and motivation along the way. Using a step-by-step approach, breaking it down visually, and using task timers to help with focusing on one chunk at a time really helps. For example, instead of memorizing a list of 20 vocabulary words at once, divide them up into 5 groups and tackle one group at a time. The sixth and final strategy includes building in frequent breaks. Sustaining attention without hyperfocus is challenging for ADHD brains. So taking breaks for dopamine like movement, getting fresh air, and meeting your basic needs enhances our retention and prevents burnout. Another way to take a break is just to check in with your body. Journal or do a quick check-in. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, or tired? Are your basic needs met? Do you need rest? Use of the Pomodoro technique with a work break is a great way to build in breaks. Usually people will use a 25 minutes of work with a 5-minute break model. You can use any work model that you like. I tend to go for the 60 minutes of work with the 20-minute break. And then when you do take a break, try to use some mindful techniques to realign and refocus. Stretch, dance, get your wiggles out. You need to do what works for you, and I invite you to try or personalize one of these learning styles and strategies this week, and let me know how it goes. You know that I love to hear your results. As always, if you found this episode helpful, share it with a friend or on your social media, and make sure you tag me so I can give you a virtual hug. That's all I have for now, my friends. Stay authentic, and we will talk soon.